Hello, and welcome to another episode of Art and Soul. This episode is titled I Am Enough, and it features Pulitzer Prize, Tony Award winner, and Oscar winner, Alfred Uhry. Help our community grow by subscribing to our YouTube channel, liking and sharing this episode, and following us at the Art and Soul Podcast on Instagram. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Art and Soul. I am Matthew Johnson Harris, and this is a special place where we explore the intersection between making art and spirituality. I start every episode with a mantra or an affirmation just to center us and also theme the episode, and hopefully you take that mantra and affirmation with you outside of this space and time that we have together. Today's mantra and affirmation is super simple. It's only 3 words. I am enough. No matter where you are, no matter what you're going through, no matter what you're reaching for, whatever you're aspiring to be, you are enough. So take a breath, release that breath, and say to yourself, I am enough. I am so thrilled to be joined by my friend, my collaborator, sounds so crazy to say, Alfred Uhry.
Thanks, man.
How are you, Bubba?
I'm fine. I'm delighted and honored to be here.
Thank you for making the time. Thank you for sharing so many beautiful moments and spaces with me, but it's super special to have you in this space.
Well, yeah, delighted to be here.
It's funny how our relationship began. Me and Alfred were working on the revival of Parade, which made its debut in 1998. I was graduating elementary school. And it came back to Broadway last year in 2023, and it won the Tony Award for Best Revival. And I looked at Alfred when we first met, and I told him that you were going to win the Tony Award
for Best. You did do that.
And you told me that you wouldn't. You said you didn't know. And I was like, you're totally winning the Tony Award this year for Best Revival of a Musical.
And we totally did.
Why did you think that you weren't?
Because I always think that. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't like to think ahead of things like that. I just like to get the job done. Mm-hmm. I think doing your best when you're working is keeping your eye on the ball is a pretty good mantra. I'm not much of an athlete, but I think that's very good advice.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel like some actors and some writers and some directors that it also jinxes yourself?
The more I work and the more I live, the more superstitious I get. Mm-hmm. So I know that it doesn't make sense. But I have my little superstitions that I privately observe. And I just all my life have not planned for the best.
Mm-hmm. Is there any specific reason?
Well, I didn't get it very often when I was little. I didn't, I was very imaginative. So I would imagine all these scenarios that were going to happen, like I was going to win this and I was going to do that. And I just kind of lived my life. But I had big dreams. Mm-hmm. I've always had big dreams. And I learned to temper them and to deal with reality. And there was nobody in my family in show business, nobody ever. And for me to say, I'm not going to stay in Atlanta, because there was no theater in Atlanta when I was a little boy, not to speak of. I'm going to go live in New York. You're going to what? Well, that's what I want to do. And I did it, and slow crawl. It was hard for me to know what making it means, and I think that's a good thing to talk about, mm-hmm. because to make it, you've got to it's all really about how you feel about yourself, and that's a hard one. I suppose one can say I've made it. I sound like a jerk if I don't say that, because I won all these awards, and here I still am, and I've been honored, and I've also been kicked in the stomach a lot along the way. So it's funny with reviews, for instance. I think somehow, and I've talked to other people, you remember the bad ones more easily than... I remember I won the Pulitzer Prize, and that was the first biggie, and that was pretty biggie too. And I heard from everybody I think I ever knew, and I heard from this one guy that I went to Brown with, and his name was Jacqui, and he said, I saw your play and I really didn't like it very much, but I'm glad you won this award. So I thought, okay, Jack, saw that, he thought that, and then he felt compelled to write it down and put it in an envelope and mail it to me.
Because there was no email back then. So he had to personally write that down, lick the damn envelope, put a stamp on it.
And send it. And
that takes effort.
And forethought and things, and I thought, that little dick, how could he do that to me?
My generation, we talk about trolls in the comments, but that level of trolling, to be able to have that much intentionality to send you that letter, and I know the reason why he felt compelled to write that letter to you wasn't because he didn't think you deserve it. It's because it wasn't him.
Oh, sure.
Right?
And he and I had sort of collaborated on a show when we were in college. And here I was doing this. I don't know what he was doing, but he wasn't a bad guy as far as I knew. And also after that, people started treating me differently. People, I would go back to Atlanta and meet my mother friends, and they would like reintroduce themselves to me, say their names. And I thought, well, I didn't have a lobotomy. I still know who everybody is. Sometimes people say, you're just exactly like you always were. And I think, well, what am I supposed to, how am I supposed to be? It never occurred to me to try to be different or to brag about, I wasn't brought up to brag. And it was brought up, modesty is a good thing. And I think I realized when I decided to come to New York that making it in the theater in New York is a huge wall to try to climb. And but the interesting thing when I think back on it is, it's not I wanted to do it, I kind of had to do it. I felt this churning that I wanted to keep writing. I knew I was young, and I knew I didn't have a lot of experience to write about, and I hadn't really plumbed the depths of my own feelings. I knew that, and I was kind of waiting for that to happen. Indeed, the more you live, the more you, at least for me, the more you plumb the depths of how you really feel about things. And you have a lot of good things happen, and you certainly have bad things happen, and you go on. You don't have to be somebody else, just be yourself. Well, I think that's hard.
It's really hard, Alfred.
It's really hard because you have to unpack things that maybe aren't so beautiful about yourself. And you have to open up to, oh, well, yeah, I did that. I've done some things that I'm ashamed of. I think it's harder, for me, I don't know, it's harder to list the things that I'm proud of. And I have them, I know them. I'm, raised 4 children and was married for a long time to a woman I loved all our married life. And I lost her, and I'm proud of what we had. But when you say, tell me the things you're ashamed of, I can list a lot of them. They're all small private things. I mean, I never killed anybody or ran over anybody or stepped on anybody or cheated anybody. I never did anything big and dramatic, but I did some things that weren't so great. And I think what's amazing is I've become pretty much a Shakespeare addict, and it all happened after I was very lucky because I went from Atlanta in the late 50s, well, middle 50s. I went to Brown University in Providence, Rhode Island from Georgia. And we had Shakespeare in high school, but it was the most boring thing in the world. And I just didn't pay attention. I was too busy thinking about this or that or girls, whatever it was. And even then I was in college, and there were the theater program at Brown was putting on As You Like It. And I certainly was not an actor, but I was the stage manager. And so I started reading the play. And hell, this play's funny. And it's romantic. And on top of that, the girl playing Celia, which is his second female lead, it's this wonderful part. She's got beautiful lines, like wonderful, wonderful, and yet more wonderful, and yet again more wonderful, and out of all hooping. I mean, and I fell in love with her, and I fell in love with Shakespeare, and I fell in love with putting on plays. And it all happened to me like wham. And ever since then, which is a long time now, I have loved Shakespeare, and I've always loved words, Matthew. I love the way that man put words together, and from what we think, he made up a lot, because English language as it is now was kind of being formed when he was writing. So he was free to make up stuff. And he also was able, it seems to me, to tap into all kind of emotions. I hate the theory. I did, one of the productions of Miss Daisy starred Vanessa Redgrave.
And just pausing, for those of you who don't know, that are watching this or listening to this, Alfred Uhry is the writer of the Pulitzer Prize winning and Oscar winning film and play, Driving Miss Daisy. So that's what he's referencing.
I'm sorry.
The humility of that. But when he's referencing Daisy, that's what he's referencing.
So,
Continue.
Vanessa Redgrave, whose father was Michael Redgrave, and whose grandfather or grandmother was somebody else Redgrave, and it went back to the 16th century, Redgrave actors. Vanessa really believed that there was no such thing as Shakespeare. It was a conglomerate of people.
What do you mean? Like, so that he didn't
There was
write...
an actor named Shakespeare, but
Yeah, so he didn't write it. It was a
it.
group of people that wrote those
Other
plays.
people wrote
Got
this
it.
and that.
Now I'm following.
And I have always rejected that theory, because the more I'm in the theater, I believe in magic. I've seen magic happen. I've seen things that are more than the components of the parts. And I like to believe that one man was gifted enough to enter these other words and express it beautifully. I mean, I was lucky in my life that I wasn't a close chum, but I was a friend of Stephen Sondheim's. Steve was maybe 5 or 6 years older than me. We had the same agent. And so I was always aware of him, and he was never condescending to me. He always just treated me like a fellow writer. And he was a regular person. He would come to my house for dinner, and we would talk. But he was some kind of genius. And he was able to tap into emotions that he couldn't possibly have lived.
But like, I love everything that you're saying, Alfred. And this is another thing that has always impressed me about our time together, is that you credit William Shakespeare's ability to use words to honor people's humanity and to really draw out the lived experience of the world. And you say that about Stephen, right? But that is what makes your work so magical. That's why people really resonate with Driving Miss Daisy, and they resonate with Parade, like they resonate with Ballyhoo, like they resonate with these plays because of your ability to do that.
I think that's just a gift that I have I'm not aware that, I'm doing this wonderful
Do you
thing.
think it's because you made Shakespeare and Stephen these type of people that you aspired to be, or to make art like them? Do you think that has been part of your process, or do you feel like you probably did it subconsciously?
I think that I'm a working professional, and I recognize in them the ultimate working professional.
Do you think so? Even at 87, you're still a working professional?
Oh, I seem to be, don't I? There I am.
Excuse me.
It's kind of staggering when you say that, Matthew, because, I mean, I appreciate the craft, and I know how hard it is, and I know that sometimes when things happen, you don't even know what you've done. It's just kind of stuff that you've done, and you're not thinking, oh, this is really a good line. You just say, okay, this will work. And then maybe a week later, you say, oh, that's pretty good. Or 5 years later. But I like to think, people have said to me, I've gotten notes, particularly with Parade this time, from an old friend who said, Carol E. Carmelo, who's a wonderful actress and was in the original Parade, she wrote me a note and she said, you know what, you're really good at what you do. I can't think of a better compliment
That's
for
very sweet.
any professional. I really admire that with actors. To be really good at what you do is so. It means, to me, it means, well, if you have a gift for something and you work hard at it and you really get good at it, that's wonderful. I mean, I could play the violin from now till 7 years from Sunday, and I would not be any good. But I could work and I could try, I could do this. But to have something that you feel like you've always been told you're good at and you kind of know you're good at, but you try to naturally improve yourself while you're doing it because it's so much fun.
And are you still having fun, would you say? Whenever you write or whenever you get in the creative process, is it still fun?
The creative part by myself is hard. The fun part, and that's the one thing I love about the theater, is rehearsals. And being with other people and talking about the work and seeing people perform it or work on it or something like that. But the creating it is just me wrestling with myself. And for some reason, that's always hard. It can be rewarding, but you have to come face to face with yourself a lot and recognize yourself and maybe things that are not fun. It's part of the process that I can see the comparison to acting or dancing or anything that has to do with putting yourself in another place and pretending you're something you're not or becoming something you're not. I suppose there's wonderful skill that I admire in somebody that's a fine electrician or a fine anything good with their hands, can build things, can fix things. That's the same. Well, I don't know what that's like because I can't do it, but I hope there's that wonderful moment when a skilled carpenter does something that he feels that I did this the way I admire anyone who is skilled and who works at skills.
I want to highlight a very specific moment in your life because I think this moment will inspire a lot of different people. I don't think this is just my generation, because you can probably confirm whether or not this was your generation, but I feel like there's this energy that if you haven't done this by 25, or if you're not under 30, that you haven't arrived or you haven't done enough. But what I love the most about your story is that you had your true breakthrough as a writer at 50 years old.
Yeah, even more. Well,
but with Driving Miss Daisy, you were, I mean, you did things. Like you were a book writer, you done some musicals.
I had a Tony nomination.
Right.
And things.
But
I
I'm
was
talking about
working.
like a breakthrough.
The breakthrough happened with Miss Daisy.
In your 50s.
When I was in my 50s.
Incredible.
And that's just, but I like to think when I was I was married very young. We had 4 children. So I was a father of 4 by the time I was your age, and that was a lot of work. And it wasn't that I made myself do it. I loved being a dad. I loved doing those things. Raising them, they were all girls, and so that was kind of magic. And I spent a lot of time with my children. I don't know if they'd tell you how wonderful I was at everything. I don't think they would. But I did that for years. And my wife was working after she'd had the children for a while. She was a teacher. She did all these things. She became a college professor, and a very dignified college professor, and all that stuff. And so I wasn't just sitting there twiddling my thumbs all those years. I was doing something and also working, but I wasn't like, after Miss Daisy happened, things happened where I was really busy all the time, and it wasn't just busy in my head. I had to go places. I got offers to do things, and traveled and all that stuff. And so my life kind of fit into good patterns. And another good thing about success in your 50s is your head's on a little bit straighter than it is when you're 25.
I can
My
only
head was
imagine.
like really not on straight when I was 25.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what kind of trash I would have done to myself. I mean, I wasn't this wild kind of a guy. I don't think I would have been putting stuff up my nose and crazy things like that, but I don't know.
Yeah, I say this all the time, that I'm very blessed that I am now having the career that I'm having in my mid-30s as opposed to my 20s, because conservatory programs specifically, they kind of train you up to go right into the professional world, and then you'll have like that very small 5% of people that are in your class that actually start working. And it really challenges your ego, because you're like, why didn't I book a Broadway show? Why didn't I book a television show coming right out of Juilliard or the Boston Conservatory, wherever you went? And I watched that happen to a lot of my friends, where they went immediately into successful careers, and then what they don't realize is that this career works like this, where there's peaks and then there's valleys, and there's peaks and there's valleys. And because they had a peak right out the gate, when they no longer were getting offers and they were no longer getting work, because they had assigned so much value to getting that job, that when they weren't getting the job, they felt like they were useless or they didn't have value.
I understand that. You're absolutely right. I think one thing that combats that is having a good, solid foundation.
Mm-hmm.
And in my case, I had a very supportive mother who believed in my career. And I had my young wife who absolutely believed in me. When I didn't kind of believe in myself so much, I didn't think that all this was going to happen for me.
Mm-hmm.
And when it did, I remember when Driving Miss Daisy opened, and it opened off Broadway on 42nd Street at the Playwrights Horizons Theater. And back then, in the 80s, it was pretty funky on West 42nd Street. That was before Disney got there. And there was a massage parlor working.
For those of you that are listening to this, when Alfred said massage parlors, he did it in quotations with two fingers, and like saying that it wasn't a massage parlor.
Well, I said it was, but there were these lovely young girls.
Oh, we know what you meant, Alfred. You don't have to continue.
So anyway, but it was in the same building. And it was pretty funky in there. And can you edit this?
No, keep going. I love it.
There was a porn house. Did I ever tell you that?
Oh, you did. Please tell the story.
Do it?
Please do this story for this. Like, this is an exclusive just for Art and Soul. So there was, no, you tell it. It's such a good story.
Well, there was a porn house across the street on 42nd. There were a lot of porn theaters. But there was one on the marquee at the porn theater, was a movie called Eating Miss Daisy. And I was scared to go.
You didn't go? You were scared to go?
I thought, what if no. I didn't.
So you could go across the street and see Driving Miss Daisy, and if you're thirsty, you can go to Eating Miss Daisy.
Well, it embarrasses me. If my mom up in heaven knew that I was saying that on television,
It's incredible. I love
what
it.
happened?
A very different Times Square, 42nd Street, right?
Very.
Very different. Oh my goodness.
How did I get into that, Matthew?
You know what? I bring it out of you, and that's why I love our relationship. It is the best. And I have one final question. If you had any wish for the world right now, what would it be? It's a big one, right? That's a big question. So I'll let you sit on it and think about it. One wish for the world.
Get rid of organized religion.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing but trouble.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, the premise of this show, Art and Soul, the central idea is that the church and spirituality and your ability to seek spirituality lives in you and coming home to you. And you say something so beautiful, Alfred, about how the theater is your church. So can you just say something about that?
Well, the theater is a place that I work.
Mm-hmm.
It's a place where I love to do my stuff. And it's where I strive to be better. And it's where I get to work with people who are good at what they do. And they all strive, most of them, most of the time, striving to do better. Of course, being theater people, they're more theatrical than anybody else, so they get madder and tantrumy and huffy and say things they don't mean a lot. But we're all in the business that you and I are in. We're all working toward the perfection of making magic happen, and that's fun. That's better than selling shoes, I think. And it's a profession that I'm very proud to be in and be a part of. And the fact that going to theater, as I often do, and I sit there in the dark and it's about to happen, if the curtain's about to go up and you're about to see, I'm always hopeful that something's going to happen. And that's an exciting place to be.
Oh my God, that's so beautifully said, because like in a perfect world, the church would bring people together. We would all be growing and learning, and there would be this hope and expectation of change. And that's what you're perfectly describing as why the theater is your church. One of my favorite people in my life is an atheist, and they have found a way to center themselves in their spirituality without organized religion. For me, I just believe that, like, I don't care how you connect to source, whether that's through organized religion or whether you choose not to claim any God, but as long as you say that I'm gonna center myself through the principle of loving people and seeing people, that is how you walk through life.
I'm not sure that I'm against organized religion. I'm against anybody who says my God is better than your God, and therefore I'm gonna kill you.
Yeah, that's very valid.
If organized religion really taught what they say Jesus was teaching everybody, that would be great.
But it isn't. Christianity is very far removed from what Jesus Christ
and they
said.
all religions. Buddhism, I don't know much about it, but it seems to make a lot of sense to me.
It is. A lot of mantra practice that I get are from Buddhism. A lot of centering ourselves, meditations and breaths, right? Yeah.
I don't think you see Buddhists going to war with, well, I don't know much about ancient Asian history, but I'm not sure you see a lot of Buddhists fighting with the flag of Buddhism. It's interior.
Yeah. I agree, which is the overall theme that I want Art and Soul to be for our viewing audience and our listening audience, is that the core to spirit and soul is within. You have to go learn who you are, have a homecoming with oneself, learn what you love, how you can activate change, how you can connect to people. And then if that so happens to be helped by whoever you call God, whether it's Allah or Jesus, or like whoever you choose to call God, that's great. But it should also start with this inner knowing of oneself.
Don't you think, in a way, God is like the better parts of yourself?
Oh, that can almost make me cry.
Don't you think? I mean, I never put it into those words before.
Yeah.
But it's in all of us.
And it's just waiting, like, to be awakened, right?
Let's
pause with that. God is the better part of all of us. That's so beautiful. It's like you're a playwright and a Tony Award, Pulitzer Prize, Oscar-winning writer. That's so beautiful, Alfred. I just wanted to sit with that. And you know what? There's nothing that we can say that tops that. we can put a button on it, because there's nothing. That is what I want to leave the audience with, right? Wow. So with that, knowing that God is the better part of ourselves, we're going to lean into our affirmation from the very beginning. I am enough. So no matter where you are right now, take a breath, exhale it out, and say, I am enough. And all those good parts of you connect you to this higher frequency. Maybe you call it God, maybe you call it spirituality. No matter what you call it, those better parts can also connect you to someone else and lean into that connection. Thank you so much, Alfred, for joining me.
Thank you.
This was absolutely beautiful.
It was a pleasure.
Art has the power to bring people together. Art has the power to transcend language, and art has the power to heal. For those reasons, art is a spiritual practice, so go make art everywhere. I'm Matthew Johnson Harris, and that was another episode of Art and Soul. See you next time.